Warcraft is a fantasy movie based on a video game, an RTS to be specific, of the exact same name, Warcraft, Orcs, and Humans. It is directed by Daniel Wu, and it stars Travis Fimmel? I think it's Fimmel, Paul Patton, Ben Foster, and a few others whose names are not actually coming to me right at this moment. It is not. It is not based on World of Warcraft, which is what everybody assumes it is, and that's what everyone's been saying for some reason. It's not based on World of Warcraft. Let's just get that out of the way right now. This is not a World of Warcraft film. This is a Warcraft film based on the RTS that came out in 1993. What was it, 95? One of those two. I'm really good at like keeping track of like all of like history and like the facts, right? I'm very good clearly at keeping facts. Anyway, so I just got back from seeing Warcraft actually just an hour ago, actually. I went with like my best friend, who's basically my brother. He and I got into Warcraft together. I played the previous Warcraft games before him, and then when World of Warcraft came out, I came in like in year one, and he came in year one also. But yeah, he and I, long story short, huge Warcraft fans. So when this movie was announced, we were ecstatic, right? We were super excited. We could see the potential that a Warcraft film would have, because there's a lot of lore there, and it's actually pretty decent lore and pretty decent storylines to be held there as well. So when it was announced that this was a movie that Blizzard was actually going to be working on, I was excited. However, to be perfectly honest, I was also a little bit cautious, right? Because we haven't had any good video game adapted movies yet. There haven't been. Yeah, no, none. I can't think of any. They don't exist. They've all been shit. Except for that Super Mario Bros. Movie. That was gold. But anyway, so with Warcraft being announced, we got super hyped, right? And so it went through all sorts of development problems. This movie was said that it was going to come out years ago. Years ago this movie got announced. And so now we're finally actually getting the movie. Directed by Duncan Jones, like I said. So, is it actually any good? Well, critics would certainly tell you it is terrible. Metacritic would also tell you that this film is absolutely atrocious. It's got something like a 20-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's getting panned as bad as Batman v Superman was. Now, that's a movie that I didn't really like. Like, don't kill me! Don't kill me! It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. So are the critics right about this one? Is Warcraft, the movie, also a colossal failure like every single other video game adaptation movie that's come out? And honestly, no. No, it is not. Warcraft is not a bad film. It's not a great film, but it is certainly not a bad one. There are way, way worse movies out there. Now, that might not necessarily be a good promotional box art to put on, like, you know, a movie poster. Digitrib, Marshall says that Warcraft is not the worst movie ever made. But no, Warcraft is not only not bad, but it's also actually surprisingly decent. Now, hear me out. The movie does certainly have its flaws. It's abundant with them. But what it does well, it does incredibly well. And this is me doing my best not to fanboy, right? I played Warcraft for years, and I'm trying to look at it from a completely subjective filmmaking point. It's not a bad film. I don't know why this movie is getting panned by tons of people as like this absolute tragedy, this just colossal failure that, you know, should never have been created in the first place. It's not that bad. It's actually quite good, considering the source material that they had to work with, cramming like 10 hours of story and lore, and way more lore than that actually, if you look at like the Warcraft Bible, and condensing it into a 2-hour film. It's done a very decent job at it. It's by no means a like grand hit that deserves like tons of awards, but as a Warcraft fan, I was thoroughly pleased. So the story takes place during the events of Warcraft 1. The orcs are coming in through what is known as the Dark Portal. Their world has been ravaged and destroyed by warfare and fell magic, which is this evil magic that demons use from another dimension. But trying to keep it basic so that people can understand, orcs are trying to come into the world of Azeroth to find a new place to call home because they've lost their old one. So they call upon the aid of a orc warlock who has made a pact with demons, but that's a bigger story that will come in later to play down the road if they decide to keep making more of these movies. But the most immediate plot is that, yes, orcs coming into the world, trying to kill everybody, and so humans have to stop them, right? That's it in the most basic nutshell. Uh, when you get into the characters, the story is told from both the orcs and the human perspective. One of the things that Warcraft has done very well, especially it really succeeded at Warcraft 3 and beyond, was that the orcs are not two-dimensional villains, right? They wanted to make somebody that was relatable. They wanted to make a villain that had drive and motivation, that wasn't just destroy the world for the sole purpose of destroying the world, right? So these orcs have lost their home and they're already naturally warlike, so they want to find a place to live, a new place to call home. And they're a natural warlike people, kind of like Klingons, I guess, if you had to like make a comparison. And so what they know most is conquest, right? So if they see something that they want, they're going to fight to take it. And I mean, while that's not exactly nice, you know, if you are an entire species that is built around this kind of mentality, well, you know, you don't necessarily see anything wrong with it. Our human characters, however, see, well, quite a bit wrong with it, right? And so the story goes into like the morality of like what this war is and how it's fought and, you know, who's right and do the orcs deserve a place to live on Azeroth. And the orcs are manipulated by this evil fell orc, the one named Gul'dan, who is influenced by demons, who is telling them, yes, we can take this planet and yes, it will be ours and you will have a place to live. But in order to do that, you're going to have to drink this really evil fell magic, which is this icky green goo and like spells that zap the life out of other like living things and use it to power my super portal that will take you into this realm of conquest. Now, in the Warcraft games, the Fel magic has far deeper influences as well, and the movie does touch on that, right? So that's the overall plot. Then our hero, who is Travis Fimmel, he plays as Anduin Lothar, who is the main character for the humans, with Durotan, who is played by Toby Kebbell. Yes, yes. And he is the star for the orc side. So, that being said, now that we kind of know, like, at least the two main protagonists, on the human side, of course, the humans are like, no, 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 this is bad. We're not gonna, you know, let this stand. We're not gonna let all of our homes and villages and stuff be burned and pillaged and stuff. So yeah, okay, yeah, you're caught up on the story of Warcraft. So how is the actual movie, right? How does it actually transition into film? And as I said before, pretty damn well, or as well as like I could have expected. It's probably the best video game movie I think that's ever been made. That's probably for damn sure. Let's go into the actual setting, the CGI, the world that this movie has built up was quite well done, actually. The CGI was pretty much outstanding through and through. The orcs looked amazing. They looked absolutely fantastic, strikingly real, and I would honestly say as good, if not better, than the Na'vi with, you know, Avatar way back when. And while I don't necessarily love that movie, you know, the CGI can't be denied that it was some damn good CGI, and this is on par, I think, in a lot of ways with that. Now, it doesn't always hold up. Warcraft is a world of Azeroth, rather, is a world of magic. There's tons of magic everywhere. And the Warcraft franchise has always been steeped in magic, which works well in video games, right? You can create all sorts of crazy particle effects that go on everywhere and explosions and all that fun stuff, and it looks great. When you have a ton of that in movies, sometimes the look of it slowly starts to decrease as you're trying to stretch out your budget for your film. And so in some places, the CGI looks a little tacky. Sometimes the mages, which are the wizards of this world, whenever they try to cast some spells, sometimes it doesn't look great. And you'll have, like, a wizard go, like, abracadabra, blah, 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 and then they cast their spell, which is a little hokey and a little tacky, and that was one of the things I didn't quite like about the film. But I mean, like, my dislikes are not nearly as high as the amount of things that I loved about this film. The perspective shifts were decent, right? So Warcraft has always had a large cast of characters, actually probably around the same size as Game of Thrones if you actually consider like all the lore that exists for the storyline. And it did a decent-ish job at balancing them all out. Now, to get to the ultimate question, will you enjoy this film if you're a fan? Yes. Will you enjoy this film if you are not a fan? Possibly. This film was clearly made for fans of Warcraft, right? It was made for people like me, for people like my friend, and the 12 million players that played World of Warcraft at some point in time. If you followed the story, or if you played the Warcraft games, you know, which it's actually based off of, not the MMO, but Orcs and Humans. Stop saying that it's based off the MMO, critics. There were 3 games before this, 4 if you count the expansion pack, but I digress. Is it good for those fans? Yes. Yes, 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 a solid yes. There are tons of cameos of, you know, creatures and places that you will be like, oh my god, I've seen that. Stormwind looks phenomenal. I could see the purple houses, the rooftops of the Mage District, and the blue of the Trade District. So, like, as someone who plays Alliance, you're going to see Stormwind, you're going to be like, wow, that looks like a very faithful adaptation of it. Ironforge, we actually get to go to Ironforge, which is one of the zones also in the game, and also has been, you know, cameoed in the movie, and it looks great. It looks great. So if you're a Warcraft fan, absolutely go see this movie because it is so worth your time. It was really lovingly recreated. Now where the critics are like accusing this movie of being faulty, I can understand. This movie does have some pacing issues. There are a lot of cuts between one place and another, right? So your protagonist will be like, okay, we're here. Oh, okay, and then suddenly we're here. Oh, okay, and then right over here, now we're here, and then we go like over here. And so it's hard to keep track of where the narrative is going. Kind of like this review, because I don't have any notes. Again, I'm just kind of babbling to you, right? This is my giddy excitement from just getting back from the film, you know, and like I want to like go into battle and like hack people down and stuff because it was great to watch, and it was so exciting. I had so much fun. But getting back, getting back on track. This movie it didn't do very well with the pacing of it, right? But I can understand why, because it had to go to so many different regions at so many times so fast. And that can be jarring. And if you're not a fan of Warcraft movies or Warcraft games, you're not really going to know what's happening, right? You're going to be like, "What? I'm a little confused. Like what like maybe have a fan go with you." So parents, if you had like a kid who like went to go see Warcraft, and you are kind of curious about it, or the kid is like yelling that it's great, because most fans I think will definitely enjoy this movie, you know, and you decide to go with him, feel free to ask him all the questions in the world, because you're probably going to be asking a lot of questions like, well, what is this, and what does this mean, and what is any of this happening, right? So yes, in terms of the feel, right, going back to the setting for a bit and the CGI and everything, I have to call out how great the props were. It all felt like Warcraft, and that is something that I was afraid was going to be kind of hard to do. Warcraft has always had very exaggerated characters. The armor was always massive. The axes and weapons, all of them were always huge. The shoulder pads for the orcs would always be these towering things that would like scale over my massive fucking head. Like the movie manages to take all of those ridiculous like scales and actually makes it work. It makes it feel real. They didn't look like cheap, shitty props like I was almost afraid that it was going to look like. Even the weapons, like the swords in Warcraft, they're like this. Like, they're always huge. Like, the blade of, like, the weapon would be, like, the length of, like, this shitty Minecraft axe that I bought, right? Like, so to see that absurdity and that scale and that largeness of Warcraft put into a film and actually recreated well was quite impressive for me. In terms of sound, I also have to bring up the sound design. The production value on this movie was great. I think it had like $100 million budget, and it does really much show. You know, aside from the weak-looking spells, the actual sound design for this movie was also great. Every single heavy impact and punch you felt in the movie, like the orcs slamming their heavy hammers down on people, and like the humans slamming their swords through like orcs, it all sounded messy and violent, but like powerful and heavy, right? And the orcs, again, I cannot stress, these orcs looked fantastic, and their size was done right. Like in the games, specifically World of Warcraft, that's what I'm going to allude to because everybody knows about it. The size of the orcs they're bigger than humans. but not as big as I always kind of imagined them to be, right? The orcs are always hunched over in the game, and so to see them in the movie now when they're not hunched over, now they actually look like these big brute-like creatures that were really, really cool. The Horde side honestly stole the show for me. I think that's where a lot of people agree with me also. The human side was not necessarily bad, but the Horde, sorry Alliance fans, as always, has kind of been given a little bit extra treatment and has kind of been done a little bit better than the Alliance side. Now, Anduin Lothar is not a bad protagonist, but he didn't necessarily sell it for me either. So in terms of positives, we've got, amazing CGI for the orcs, great set design, great adaptation of the zones and the world and, brought to life. Great sound design. Did I say great sound design? If I did, oops. Unedited. What can you do? Right? I'm just kind of winging it. And then you also had a pretty decent plot of condensing that much into one. On the negative side, you have the pacing issues. There is a bit of a pacing problem with this movie, but it's not necessarily something that's a deal breaker. If you're a fan, you're going to be able to keep up. Right, plain and simple. I had no problems keeping up with what was going on in the story, but if you're not a fan, you're gonna probably be lost. The spells for the mages were okay, and the wizardry babble was only so-so. There was a, go figure, forced romance scene that every single Hollywood movie just has to have. My friend was okay with it, and he was like, it's fine. It shows that humans and orcs can get along, and I'm like, okay, yeah. But I don't know, if you cut out that and you added a few more minutes of actual I don't want to say more exposition, but if you use that time instead to catch people up, I think that would have helped the movie a little bit more. So cutting out the forced romance scene, I wasn't sold on it, right? It didn't do anything for me. But other than that, there were a few forced lines here and there, right? Some of the dialogue is a little bit hokey, but I mean, it's based off of a movie video game right now. That doesn't necessarily give it a pass, but at the same time, if this is the direction that video game movies are going to start taking, then I'm okay with it. I'm very much okay with it. But yes, so to wrap this all up in a nice little bun, Warcraft is a quite enjoyable movie. I'm going to give it... I'm not going to actually use a rating system. You know what? No. This is my first review. As my first review, I am not actually going to do numbers because numbers are incredibly arbitrary and completely pointless. Will I go to see this movie again? Maybe, actually. Yeah, I might. I had a lot of fun. And if you're a Warcraft fan, I think that you're going to enjoy it too. So go out, support this movie. Even if it's not the most fascinating storyline in the world because it's Warcraft 1, it's definitely something that's worth seeing as a Warcraft fan. I was cheering as at least internally, as the Horde and Alliance were fighting each other, and the Alliance soldiers were running down the field, firing their blunderbusses at the orcs as they charge forward. It was oh, here we go, charge forward. It was great. And then the action scenes that we did get were gritty and heavy and powerful, and I'm going in circles. So yes, go support this movie, because if you support this movie, then we get eventually a Warcraft 3 movie, and that's the thing that I cannot wait for. You want to see it. You want to see the Lich King in action. So, yes, Warcraft, is it worth a watch? Yes. Is it worth a buy on Blu-ray or, DVD or whatever? Yeah, it might. If you're a fan, then yeah, you're going to want to add this to your collection. Definitely. So, yeah. All right, maybe I'll throw in a little bit of a rating system. Let's give it about a C+ or a B-. It's not a bad film. Go see it so that we can get Warcraft 3. And I think you'll have fun with it. How was that for a first review? I think it was pretty good. What do you think, Aussie? He's cleaning himself right now. He's not actually sitting on my chair, which is kind of disappointing. I can explain the Minecraft axe, by the way. I didn't have time to find props. Yeah. Filming on a budget. I don't know. What was I thinking? This is stupid. Bye, guys.